Hello and welcome to the Unique CPA with your host, Randy Crabtree. We're committed to creating a thriving community of accounting professionals who are physically and mentally healthy, fulfilled, and energized by their work. Our ultimate goal is to elevate the reputation of the accounting profession and vastly improve the lives of those in it. The Unique CPA is brought to you by Trimerit, the specialty tax professionals.
Today our guest is Ilya Radzinsky. Ilya is co-founder of TaxDome. I'm sure many of you have heard of TaxDome. And rather than me digging into deep to what TaxDome is and who Ilya is, I'm going to let him introduce himself. So Ilya, welcome to the Unique CPA.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. You asked me what is TaxDome. So in official terms, it's a practice management platform for accountants, bookkeepers, and tax preparers. So if you're looking at one of these reports that people are putting out or searching the internet for a platform, those are the words you'll see. But odds are you're not a software specialist, you're not a investor, and those are just words that you're hearing. But here's what we actually do in practical terms, right? So we help firms organize and manage their teams, their clients, their projects in really the most efficient manner. So whether or not you're a doer, so if you're a preparer or a bookkeeper or you're a manager, you've got different things that you need. So we provide managers with oversight and visibility, and we provide doers with an easy interface to know exactly what they're working on. Now, the other thing that we focus on is really the client experience. So we're not just B2B where the accounting firm uses our platform, but we're an all-in-one tool. So not only are you and your teammates logging into TaxDome to manage your work, but your clients are logging into a secure portal, both from their phone or from their desktop to communicate with your firm. Now, client portals, practice management, these are all terms that exist in many ways, but odds are people want to know, well, how are you different? Why am I looking at you versus someone else? And the way to think about it is Apple isn't the only firm that produces smartphones, right? But I don't know about you, but I use an iPhone, and there's a specific feeling you get when you use an iPhone that's different from other phones, right? They all call, they all have apps, but there's just a completely different feeling from other phones that also produce similar functionality. So, and that's really what we do, but in the practice management space. We make it feel easy, all-encompassing, and fun. And again, very importantly, we focus on the client experience because practitioners will get used to anything, right? You guys have been using systems that were designed in the 90s and early 2000s, and you don't bat an eye. You're used to it, right? It is what it is. Yep. You're used to those systems, but your clients, they're using modern apps. They're used to a Shopify buying experience, right? They're used to Netflix. They're used to all these modern apps that have billions and billions of dollars of funding behind them. And when they log in or they interface with your firm, whether you like it or not, that's what they're coming to expect, and that's what they're comparing it to. So that's why for us, we focus tremendously on the client experience and giving every firm, whether or not your team of 5 or 50, right? But you don't have $1 million budgets for your own apps. We're giving you the ability to provide your clients that really amazing experience for all firms.
Yep, got it. I think buy-in from the clients, making that user experience is so important because, we are an industry where efficiency matters. And too often, I think accountants don't realize how technology, how these apps, how integrating TaxDome and other things can make them more efficient. Everybody listening to this show knows I'm a big proponent of work-life balance and, efficiencies within their firm and anything we can do to avoid burnout. So great, we've got the client side where they're going to have buy-in because it's user-friendly for them and they're going to see this ability. How about from the accountant side? Because to me, that's just as important. I need to have them feel comfortable with the using of it, the integration of it, and realize that they're going to have more free time, more efficiencies because of the integration. So how is that built in to help the accountant on that end of things? Man, that was a long question.
No,
sorry.
Oh, good, man. I got you. So, this is how to think about it, right? So the first part of your question, if you boil it down, is number one is what is the firm experience? Number two, how does it tie into the client experience? And how do you get buy-in from your team members? So this is a huge thing, right? The bigger your team is, the bigger the ship is, right? The harder it is to move, the more people you have to convince. And switching systems you're always going to find that person in the middle that just doesn't want to do it for one reason or not, right? For one reason or another. Now, that's really where the flagship product, so to speak, of all this is automation. And it ties into your second part, actually, where you asked about the client experience. Because TaxDome provides both the firm and the client experience, you're able to have the entire workflow of tax, bookkeeping, accountant, wealth manager, whatever your workflow is, you're able to have the entire thing in one system.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is the automation cannot just say, when this happens, do something else, but you can have automation between what the client does and triggers something else from your team. So work-life balance, you mentioned, right?
Yep.
Accountants forever have been spending so much time on fielding calls from clients. What's my status update? Right? What's my status update? Where are you on this? And It's just a giant waste of time. We allow the client to always know exactly what's going on. Okay, so you can get rid of that. A second part is, again, keeping the client up to date. You can have an admin that you hire to, check in on people, keep someone, send them reminders, tell them, hey, we're still waiting on you. That's all automated. But where it all ties in is because we have signatures, invoices, emails, internal firm workflow like tasks tied together, you can have things happen when another one happens. So for example, let's say you wanted to have an e-signature request, a standard tax preparer workflow. You prepare the return, you need to send them a signature request, you need to have them review it, you need to have them pay you. You can have, as soon as the e-signature request is completed, the invoice be sent to the client, or vice versa if you want to set it up that way. And then as soon as the client signs the document, you can have an automatic task for your admin to go and e-file a return. So at no point does anyone do anything. It's like a conveyor belt, right? Henry Ford invented this in 1915 or 1920, whenever this was. The idea of an assembly line works, right? It works for McDonald's, it works for tax practices, it works for bookkeeping practices, it works for any business. You need to be able to set up a standardized series of workflows and have the job flow through them. And we're able to do that in a very unique manner because it's not just disparate systems of the internal firm system and then some other system what your client interfaces with. It's all tied together.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. Let's, I think I'm going in backwards order now. We started with the client, then we went to us. Let's go one step even further backwards, because the one thing that I see, and I'm out talking about automation a lot, not that, well, I do have a computer science degree, but I don't work in a technology firm. But the one thing that I see when I'm talking about that, when I'm talking about efficiencies, is that there seems to be, and I think this is just an ingrained in people, a fear of some short-term, what they consider pain. And so they may consider pain, oh, wow, I'm going to get this new software, I'm going to get TaxDome, whatever it is. And now all this time and effort that I have to put in to get this going is such traumatic experience in my brain, just my brain, not in reality, but they think it. And they don't look at this long-term time savings, efficiencies that you're going to have. Is there anything that you try to do to get them past that? Hey, that's just going to be so much work for us to integrate. We're just going to ignore it and just sally it, do the same thing we did last year. Is that something you run into? And if so, how do you get them past that?
So you always have resistance, right? And the resistance can come from multiple ways. You can have somebody fear client adoption, for example, right? That's a common fear of my clients won't go for this. And that's why we focus on the simplicity of the client experience, right? And yes, it might be different from some clients of yours that are used to walking into your office, but those exact same clients, I assure you, are not walking into their bank to find out how much money is in their checking account.
Right.
Right. As long as what you provide them is valuable, as long as it saves them a drive, as long as it saves them a trip to the post office, as long as it's convenient and they can access it on their phones. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm holding up my mobile phone. Everything's there. And as long, all of these people, especially elderly people, right? The biggest thing is I have elderly clients. They're not going to use this. My dad is 70 years old and he does not want to text. He does not want to use his phone for anything. But the one thing he uses his phone for is to look at photo of his grandkids.
Yep.
Right. He wants it. That gives him value. He loves it, and he will not let go of his phone and his iPad. You'd have to rip it apart from his hands. And why? Is because he finds value in it. So if he can figure out how to use Facebook to do that, and figure out how to use WhatsApp, your clients will want to use an app if it gives them value. So that's on the client adoption side. On the firm adoption side, it's different, right? It's about delivering. A lot of times, especially as you talk to bigger firms, the people you're speaking to are often gatekeepers, right? And that's why I often talk about words like, I don't want to use the term practice management, because what often happens is you have a firm owner, you have 50 people, firm owner says to, somebody, hey, go get us a practice management system, figure it out. That person then starts Googling, starts to figure out, what is a practice management system? How do I do this? And they're just overwhelmed. So one of the things that we do is we provide key account managers whose goal it is to educate you on really what you're getting, right? So a lot of times people see words, but again, they are not professional software buyers. They are not professional system integrators. They are someone that works in an accounting firm that was tasked with, go set up a system for me.
Yep.
And that's an important thing to understand. So we try to keep everything in very much human speak and try to really explain every single step, walk you through it, and really have you see, again, just like your clients, have you see the value of what you're getting. So it's not just about, if you solely focus on the upfront cost, it's a very negative view, right? All you think about is, this is going to be hard, instead of what you're getting as a result of the work you're putting in.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that we do is we allow you to really customize for your firm, for your workflows, right? So you have some firms that are high touch, some firms that are low touch, some firms that offer just tax, some people that, that offer a full service accounting, and they might have different workflows for different departments. You might have different setups, you might have different offices. So based on how complex your setup is, that will obviously determine how long the setup will be. So for example, we were talking earlier and you mentioned you guys use Salesforce.
Yep.
And Salesforce is super, super powerful tool, right? It's amazing. It's the most powerful CRM tool on the planet, arguably.
Yep.
And it's used by corporations everywhere. And if you look at Salesforce, they put in 30% fees on top for implementation. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's so powerful and they can customize it to you, but they charge a very, very hefty price for it, right? The actual implementation cost. So, and this is, I think, something that isn't as clear a lot of times to people, because again, they're not professional software buyers, in that the more complex the system, like SAP, if you've ever heard of it, out of Germany, for these huge, huge companies, it costs more to set up SAP than it does to buy it sometimes, because they're so powerful, they're so customizable. So if all of these bigger companies, what they realize is you have to focus on the value you're getting, not just on the implementation. And from our end, we do everything possible to make it as easy as possible by, again, assigning you a key account manager, walking you through it, ready-made templates, really anything we can do from our end to make it easy. But at the end of the day, you have to see the value for your firm, your team, and your clients.
Yep. And I think those managers are probably tasked with the showing the value and the ease of integration, or at least helping to ease that integration, because that's the biggest thing I see, is that people shut down when they think they have to start integrating this. So anything you can do for that, I think that's awesome. A couple things, and I know you've said you don't like to use the project management verbiage, but I'm not sure how else to
practice management.
I'm sorry, practice management terminology, but I'm going to use it for a second, because there are a lot of tools out there, practice management tools, even though you use different words. And so when we're looking at, when somebody's out there trying to decide, what am I going to use? How am I going to do it? How do you stand out? How do you differentiate? And I know you've told us a lot already that probably ties into that, but what are the key things you say, hey, this is why TaxDome's the way to go?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple parts to it. One is, I do think that if you're looking to buy software today, it's the best time it's ever been, right? Yep. There's a lot of great options out there. You're able to do research. You're able to really see what works for you and what you want. So if you are in that market today, there's a lot of amazing resources that can help you. There's a lot of companies all tackling different problems. So it's a great place to be a software buyer, a great time to be a software buyer, rather.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Now, obviously, where we differ and what we recommend to do is, don't just look at where the firm is, but where the firm is going, right? So, for example, we started in 2017. And today we have over 10,000 firms using our platform. We're in over 25 countries, and we have over 250 people on our team that are building this product day in and day out. And we're focused on the future, right? Our goal is not where we are today, but we're going to be the next Intuit. And you can hear it here first and so forth. And what I mean by the next Intuit, I'm talking about in terms of size and scale, in terms of value delivered to the industry, rather, I would say, right? Being a household name.
Yep.
And that's really our goal. And we're going to continue growing. We're continue developing features because at the end of the day, a lot of features and problems will overlap, right? Someone comes out with something, someone else, does the same. And a lot of it has to do with what's your overall big picture. And in my mind, the industry is going to naturally go towards a few key players over time because this happens in every industry. Because many of these companies that are solving something over time, inevitably, especially in a higher interest rate environment, they're not going to be able to raise funding. They're not going to be able to continue on this path that kind of they're going. And what they're going to see is the bigger your product gets, the harder it is to make changes, the harder it is to improve, because it's a lot easier to develop the smaller you are. The bigger company you get, the longer it takes and so forth. So from our standpoint, that's why we've always focused on the big picture first of we are a practice management platform that tackles both the firm and the client. And we cover all that for you. And we're going to continue developing, we're going to continue improving those things. And what we do is we really listen to the clients. So I'm a co-founder, but also I head up the product team. So I have 20 products that report to me, but I'm still speaking to clients every single day. Our sales team, our customer service team, our product managers, everyone is speaking to clients every single day. What I mean by that is anyone building any tool can get bogged down into their own world. But for us, it's important to speak to clients, to learn about their problems, and get that feedback on a consistent basis, because the problems we're solving for today aren't, you have to be mindful of the problems tomorrow. Nobody from the software buying world thought mobile apps were necessary. And then you wake up one day and
Right.
you need to have a mobile app. So we're always looking to the future. We're always looking at not from where you're seeing the product today, but where is the product going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yep, I like that because you actually beat me to the punch because I was actually thinking the next question, we're going to talk about the future of TaxDome. So I do want to still ask that a little bit because you just talked about the fact that you are looking at the future. You're trying to stay ahead of the curve, which is extremely important because if you're not, you're going to be gone. And so there's a few things. Just I don't know if there's any specific functionality that you think are going to be important moving forward, but I think as important as that is obviously everybody's looking at how AI is going to affect how things work. So maybe we start with the AI integration or how AI is going to be part of TaxDome, or is it already? And just give us a background on AI and how that's going to interplay with you.
Definitely. I mean, AI is, I wouldn't say it's the future. AI is today. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
You're seeing AI is today, and you're seeing, I saw some great information. There's like a CEO of a big AI company said yesterday that he thinks that there's been more developments in AI in the last year than in the last 10 years. And this isn't some random talking head. This is a CEO of a very heavily funded AI company. So it's growing super, super fast. Now, from our perspective, we've seen a lot of AI developments in the space, but in my mind, they're not really groundbreaking, right? I think, for example, composing emails, editing text, those are all things that are going to be the core of Gmail and the core of any email. You're not really adding much there. I think most of it is done for, big bells and whistles. We have AI,
right?
Kind of like, putting .com in 1999 at the end of your domain made your, company value go up tremendously. So I think it's a lot similar to that. We're doing a lot of work on AI, but internally we're looking at it to be a real groundbreaking thing, right? So we've all seen it. I think it's kind of it's great. They're all wrappers on top of Chat GPT. It's great, and at the end of the day, I think OpenAI is going to do a lot more with that than any other company can. That's kind of my viewpoint on it, right? So I think AI is tremendous, and I think there's a lot of companies trying to figure out really the ways to truly add value with AI. There's the wrapper, so to speak, and then there's the true value. And that's really what we're working on from a internal firm reporting perspective, there's a lot more there. But I would say it's not focused on purely the content part, which I think is nice. And we're going to add that as well, but we don't want to come out with that because I think that's it's too small. We're thinking much bigger picture.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have to wait and see what the AI integration into TaxDome is going to be and when it's coming out. But I appreciate that and your insights on that. All right. So that was all great data. I'm really interested, honestly, on your product and see where you're going. But let's just talk in general for the industry, for the profession. What are the biggest tech challenges you're seeing accountants have to deal with?
Sure. So I think accountants, let's call a spade. It's an older profession,
Yep.
right? The average accountant is over 40. And in terms of tech adoption, it's not exactly the quickest there, right? Because again, people are older, they've got a lot of small businesses, they're more hesitant to change, but they want to embrace it, right? They listen to this podcast, they're on all these forums, they're looking for it, right? They want to dabble their feet and they want to learn about it. So they want to embrace change, but they're afraid of it. And not just that, but it's what we talked about earlier. They're afraid of not just of whether their clients will adapt to the tools, right? And like I said, as long as you add value, people will adapt and find that they love it, right? You have to remember, why do your clients hire you? One of the biggest reasons clients hire accountants is to make them feel at ease.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It really is we overthink things too much. At the end of the day, if you make them feel at ease, kind of like people hire, personal trainers partially for the experience of talking to somebody for an hour and not just the they can work out on their own.
Right.
It's just a different experience. So if you can make them feel at ease, if you can add value and then really focus on like I said, the adding value and not the administrative part, right? So if you serve businesses, if you can add value and add insight into the actual finances of the business, the more you as an accountant can embed yourself into, helping them with projections, helping them understand the business end of it, the more you can focus on the business end and not just on the compliance end, the more you're able to add value, the more you can charge. And that's really what, in my opinion, I think the industry should be focused towards, because compliance over time is going to become, it already is, but it's going to become a commodity. Prices don't go up for it. But prices for value, if you're able to save somebody $50,000, you can charge a lot more than you would for simply the compliance aspect of it. So embracing technology doesn't just mean turning your personal business, which oftentimes, again, the accounting industry has a lot of small businesses, doesn't mean turning your small business into a faceless corporation, right? They're worried, oh, my clients are going to feel impersonal. But if you leverage technology, that can allow owners and staff to really double down on, again, what they're being hired for, delivering value. Remember, that's what the client wants.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they want at the end of the day, is they want to feel at ease in their finances, whether it's their personal or whether it's their business. That's what they're hiring you, the expert, for, not for simply the compliance.
Yep. And it's the relationship. I agree with you completely because, honestly, and sorry, accountants, and I'm a CPA, but none of us are that much different than the other person out there. But it's that relationship you build with that client, that ease, like you said, of knowing that you've got their back and you're going to help them and you're not going to allow them to get in trouble. And if there is issues, you're going to help solve them. But that's the relationship part. We all can have expertise at some level. So that relationship, and then what you said, and you're talking my language, that value, you can show that value then that you've brought, which is amazing. All right. So one thing you said when we were just talking there about the challenges is that, sure, we are an older profession. One thing I want to do is try to change that. But the fact that we have a lot of boomers that own small firms. And so their thought is probably, hey, I'm done in a year or 5 years or whatever. Why am I going to take time now, to integrate new software, to update? I'm going to sell in 5 years. And so why am I going to take this pain? Not that it's pain, but that's their thought process of doing this now, this new integration of some new software. What do you say about that? Or how do you address that?
I think it's a great question. Businesses are sold on multiples of EBITDA, revenue, whatever financial term you want to look at. But effectively, someone looks at how much money you earn and says, I'm willing to pay X times that for your business. People will pay a much higher multiple for a turnkey modern business that is much easier to transition, where the client base is simply transferred through a login as opposed through pieces of paper and some intricate system that nobody that wants to buy a firm will want to work with, right? If it's in your head, if it's it's not even pieces of paper, but spreadsheets or, 10 different systems that nobody knows how they work. And that if you're away for a week, everything crashes. Nobody can figure out how everything works. Nobody wants to buy that business, right? They'll buy it at the end of the day, and businesses are sold. And I'm sure, you go to these conferences, there's all these brokers there that, try to help accountants sell businesses, and they do, but they sell for low multiples. And if you have a business that is modern, if it's all digital, the transfer of clients is much easier. The transfer of documentation, the transfer of workflows, the transfer of everything is much, much easier. The easier it is, the more profitable the business, the more people will pay for it. So the reason that you should invest in transferring to a system and really digitizing is because you're going to make more money off of it. So, the best way to think about it is if you remodel your bathroom, you're going to spend, 10 or 15,000, but the ROI on that of selling your house is, adds $100,000 to your house, something like that.
Right.
Think of it in the same exact way. Yes, it's an investment, but nobody wants if you see pictures of a home with an old, clunky bathroom, and it's going to look very different than a modern bathroom. So think of that exact same home buying experience, but from the person buying an accounting firm, they're just willing to pay much more because they can see that it's already set up.
Right. We've got the efficiencies there. You've got a background in investment banking. We were talking about this beforehand. My son does as well. And so, getting the value of that business up before you sell it, that EBITDA up, let's say, before you sell it is important. If let's say somebody's listening now and they think, hey, I got 3 years left. What is a time frame that they need to really ramp up to increase the value so that they are maximizing that sales price that they can get and enjoy a better retirement?
It's a matter of weeks. It's
Really?
not I think that's a huge misconception, right? I mean, we were talking before, you're a firm of 80. A firm of 80, depending on how established your processes are, you're going to have to convince 80 people to use a different system, right? That takes time. That takes months. That takes training. That takes workshops. It takes getting a lot of people on board, right? So simply by the more people you have, the longer it takes. If you're a firm that's, under 20 people, you can get set up in a matter of weeks, right? And that's really the way to think about it is everything's in stages. The way we do things is we create an implementation plan for you. Right. So we learn about your processes. We learn about your existing processes. How are you managing your work today? How are you interfacing with your clients today? And then what you do is you create a implementation plan and a transition plan of which systems you're going to transition immediately, which systems you might want to keep for the first little bit and transition afterwards. Right. So in the technology world, there's something called an MVP. It means minimal viable product. And oftentimes firms, when they start transitions, they roll it out maybe to a couple people, and then they put on one department, for example, and then you add another department. And once you have buy-in from one department, everybody else comes on board. So to your question of how long does it take? It really is a matter of weeks, possibly way sooner. Again, it just depends on how intricate your processes are, how well documented they are already. We could get somebody set up in a day, 2 days, but when I say multiple weeks, 2.5 of those weeks are talking to you to learn about what you're already doing.
Right. Yep.
So it's like getting those processes out of your head onto paper and, mind mapping them. That's actually what takes the longest period of time, not the actual implementation. So the firms that are already, slightly more tech forward or have thought of this and have those processes mapped out, you've done the hard part. The actual setup and the implementation, that's the easy part.
All right. So don't fear change, which is what we do too much, because one, it's going to make you more efficient, whether it's for the next firm owner or for you as you continue. So we just talked about the challenges that firms are facing, but how about your firm? I mean, there's challenges you're facing too. What are they and how do you address that?
So we mentioned earlier about how we release a lot of features, right? So one of the things that we're battling with is how to balance releasing new features and keeping our community up to date on those releases, right? So because we're making so many updates, because we're moving so fast, it's sometimes overwhelming for our community to stay up to date. Now, we're addressing this. We've built out a dedicated education team, right? So we have a whole team who's focused on, kind of like your company, you've got departments, right? So we have a whole team that's focused on making videos, making webinars. They're constantly updating our help and our guides. We've built what we call the TaxDome Academy. The people that prefer more course type work, which a lot of accountants do, give me a structured course. I want to take this and pass that, and I'll know everything that's going on. We have those. So, learning styles vary.
Yep.
And our education team has done a really great job in creating content for both visual and verbal learners. And I don't know when this is going to be released, but in the next quarter, we're going to be releasing both. We've already released actually updated webinars, but we're also going to be coming out with a boot camp to really, you were talking about how long it takes to get set up and so forth. We're doing a 5-day boot camp where at the end of that boot camp, you're going to be fully set up. Everything's going to be fully done for you. And our team is going to be walking you through that. So it's kind of interesting, right? You release so much that then you have to teach people how to use it.
Right.
That's a great problem to have, right? Is that we're very forward thinking. And yes, we understand that sometimes again, people don't want change, and those people that don't want change could be already people using your software. But we're looking to always improve. We're looking to skate where the puck is going, so to speak. So, but we are also putting in a great deal of resources to assist with that through the education team.
Yep, I think education is huge. I'm all about education. That's pretty much what I do. So I appreciate that. I really think you should have your own podcast. You're good at this. So let's transition out. 2 questions I want to ask. The first one I asked every guest, and it's extremely important to me. I know about you now and within the company, but I don't know about you personally. So let's talk about what you do outside of work. What are your outside of work passions? Because to me, that really makes you who you are. Great, IT and TaxDome and all that. That's part of what you do. But what's your outside of work passions?
Well, purely from a physical sense, I've gotten into golf in the past 2 years. So both my brother and I have taken up golf. So trying to learn to play this very, very difficult game.
Yep.
But I'm enjoying it. And on a other personal side, is I very much love to learn from what I consider visionaries, right? So I think there's so many great resources today of really seeing what other people have done and being able to follow in their footsteps. So right now I'm reading Rockefeller Letters,
wow.
where John D. Rockefeller wrote 30 plus letters over the course of 30 years to his son. And it's fascinating. So I find it so interesting because, again, he came from nothing, Rockefeller, the elder Rockefeller, and then obviously became the richest man in the world. And him writing letters to his son, who was obviously born into insane wealth, I find fascinating because he sees it from both sides.
Right.
So on the one hand, he's alerting him of the privilege that he has, and in one way to make the most of it and to make sure he's doing it, but at the same time to be aware that growing up without means also gives you a certain chip on your shoulder that he'll never have.
Yep.
So to be aware of that, which I find interesting. So both, my I'm a first generation. I'm not even first generation. I'm a 0 generation. So I'm an immigrant. I moved here when I was 6. My brother moved. He was 14. But we moved here from Ukraine and kind of grew up here. So it's definitely been an interesting path to kind of get to where we are today. But it's exciting, and that's why I like looking at what other people have done and kind of following, learning about others and following in their paths.
That's cool. I like that a lot. So golf and learning from others from the past. I'll go with those. And then one last question. If people want to find out more about you and obviously TaxDome, where would they look?
So you can reach me at ilya@taxdome.com. But I do a lot of webinars for our team, of new product releases and so forth. So look out for me there. But otherwise, if you're a client, love to speak with you. We're always speaking to clients as much as we can, and at conferences. So I think you mentioned a conference we were at. We did maybe 15 conferences this year, maybe even more.
Yep.
So please, if you guys go to these conferences, we'd love to meet you there, talk to you, learn about everything. So this is great, Randy. Thank you so much for the intro, and thank you so much for the time.
You got it, Ilya. Thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unique CPA. You can find the show notes for today's episode and learn more about TriMerit at theuniquecpa.com. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting app. And join us next time for more expertise and insights on the Unique CPA. Professionalproductions.net